I've been on council now for just on 20 years and 10 years as mayor. Um, when I was originally elected as mayor, it was annually by the councillors, and I was elected 5 or 6 times there. And then, as a result of a community referendum, we switched to what's called a popular mayor, and I was elected as the mayor for 4 years, 4 years ago. It is a hard gig, but I really do enjoy it. I happen to have became a paraplegic in 1968 as a very young man as a result of a motor vehicle accident. And other than a few years farming, I've worked in offices for most of my life, and as a CPA, and probably not enjoyed it that much. But this last 4 years in particular, I've enjoyed here immensely. A stable, happy, cohesive council, extraordinary staff, extraordinary people outside don't realise how hardworking and professional and dedicated these people are. I'm very proud of the little council. I'm quite happy also about the way the town has evolved over the last 20 years. A mayor would hardly say otherwise, but really I do think we've got the balance right in terms of development versus community versus the environment. And there's a stronger sense of community, of belonging now, certainly than there was 20 years ago, which is appropriate because a lot of people have moved here because they want to be part of community. We seek to develop land and maximise its value. It has an economic benefit in terms of jobs, but system old often we'd be just selling off at bargain basement prices raw, undeveloped land, and the entrepreneur, the developer next in the line was making all the money. So the philosophy was if there's going to be an economic boom in Ballina, then the ratepayers through their council are entitled to participate. That's led to a very successful model of maximising the value of land, either by rent income or just by capital value. And then we've been able to use that as seeding money for a number of community infrastructure projects. I think some $40 million worth over the last 10 years. And what we do is we're approached by a community group for a righteous project, like a surf clubhouse or a marine rescue tower or a community centre or a hockey field or something like that. We're able to put a substantial amount of money in it, sufficient to get the approvals, allocate the property, and maybe 10%, 15% of the actual funding. That gives the community group and council a very strong base to which to make an application, particularly to the Commonwealth Government. The Commonwealth Government can then contribute with full confidence the project is not just a will o' the wisp, that it's going to occur. By funding those community infrastructure projects, and there was the Naval Museum upgrade, there was the Art Gallery, the Community Services Centre in Bangalore Road, major upgrades to Ballina and Alstonville CBDs. By funding that through our commercial activities, leave it up with grants, we've been able to allocate a higher proportion of our rate income to our pure nuts and bolts core issues, which are parks and gardens, sewer, roads, water, and the environment generally. So we've been able to achieve, although we've been granted increases by the state government, we've been able to achieve still a very low average rate compared to most other councils, and then a higher proportion of that rate income is able to go to those things, and the community loves it. You know, nothing the community likes more than really smart parks and gardens and no litter. My greatest issue, my greatest stress is the Richmond River and the water quality. The fish kills that occur from time to time are natural, but they're clearly exacerbated by human activities. And if I have any frustrations about the job, is that I haven't been able to lock in a better organisational structure, not here at Ballina, but for the whole Richmond Valley. We have a few irons still in the fire, and we may well, before the end of this term, be able to achieve, if not an actual agreement, at least some degree of consensus about the right vehicle, the right legal vehicle, the right local government entity to take responsibility for the entirety of the Richmond Valley natural resource management. The gestation for any sort of structural reform in government, particularly local government, is just so difficult. You've seen the debate going on the present time over the library issue. Really, it's a similar type issue. How do we cobble together 4 or 5 councils who on one hand want to maintain their independence, but on the other hand are seeking economies of scale, critical mass to achieve higher things. For someone in New South Wales, the last 100 years, there seems to be a degree of adversary between state and local government. For some reason, it doesn't seem to exist in Queensland, and I don't know the other states well enough. But yeah, there's a number of issues where we seem to be locking horns on planning and on funding. One of the things that stresses is that when we build something like the Lennox Community Centre on Crown land, we're then obliged to pay rent to the state government on the land that's underneath the building that we built for the community. And that applies at libraries and art galleries. Well, that doesn't seem logical, doesn't seem right. The planning process also can be a little bit problematic. Now, the Environmental Planning Assessment Act is a state act, but it obliges us to do things. One of the things it tells us to do in relation to the most recent local environmental plan changes, prescribed for us to go and consult with the community and come up with a fresh local environmental plan. Well, we've done that very diligently over 2 or 3 or 4 years, spent a lot of money, a lot of consultation, and now we're getting the sense that state government may not be, we don't know yet, but we may not be happy with the outcome and may wish to overrule us. No councillor has a mandate past the September elections. I've simply announced that I'm not going to be a candidate in September. And I thought that was the appropriate thing to make that announcement. Not that there's anything grand about it, but the job is round to go around. It doesn't belong to anybody. And I was being asked constantly what I'm doing, as everybody gets asked. And I just thought, rather than run the risk of giving vague answers or answers being misinterpreted, if I came out and said quite bluntly that I won't be a candidate. And I mean, after 20 years, you've got to disengage at some point in time. The only other alternative is to die, and sometimes that in my own macabre way, that appeals a little bit. But they've got to disengage sometime. And I am 62, and I am a paraplegic, and there are a couple of other things I want to try and achieve on this mortal coil. After 20 years, I guess the things that would be nice to be remembered for is we achieved a level of governance and council administration which seemed to be very successful. Our reforms in the area of sewage treatment, dual reticulation and reuse of reclaimed water, although it's early days yet, they took a lot of vision. And I guess also the economic model, where we seek to minimise rates, generate a separate income stream to service the community's aspirations outside of our core activities, has I think also been successful, and I hope it's appreciated. I guess it'd be good to be thought that we came, we did, we went, and we did more good than harm.